Good afternoon, and welcome to this edition of Plymouth Profiles. Plymouth Profiles is an opportunity to spend some time with someone local in the greater Plymouth community that has an impact on all of us. And today I'm delighted to welcome Roxanne Whitbeck. She is the Director of Veteran Services for the town of Plymouth. Welcome, Roxanne.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
So, Roxanne, how long have you been in Plymouth?
Well, I started with the town over 20 years ago, being the Director of Veteran Services for the last 15.
Good. Now, what brought you to this? What's your educational background? From where do you come?
It's funny because I came right out of the military. I did, some courses in the military, but that's what brought me to the military, was not being able to afford college, going through the military, and then just coming out and working on life's experience, so to speak.
And in what branch did you serve?
United States Navy, 13
Nice.
years.
13 years.
Yes,
and when was that?
From 1980 to 1993.
And what type of service experience did you have?
I had a great service experience. My first tour of duty was RTC Orlando, where you train the recruits. I was the yeoman or the admin assistant for the captain of the base, and then I went to Guam for 2 years, and I was on the admiral staff. And then I came back to Boston to the military entrance processing station, and I was the supervisor of the in processing. And then I went to NAS South Weymouth for 3 years.
Great, good.
It was fun, lots of fun.
And why did you finally end the service time?
At the time, I had young children, and I was thinking about their growing up with the same friends. So I kind of made that, I wanted them to have the same friends and that stability. And I'm glad I did, because it brought me to the job I have today. I'm sure of it.
So we're taping this the day after Memorial Day in 2024.
Yes.
And thinking about your own experience, last week I happened to be the song leader in the Plymouth Rotary Club, and so I wanted to do something related to Memorial Day. And as I Googled songs, one of them was, which surprised me, is a Memorial Day song, "Where Have All the Flowers Gone?" And if you think about the words, it talks about young girls pick them, and then it went to young girls to husbands, husbands to soldiers, and we kind of changed it up a little bit and kind of didn't get into that because it's changed so much from when that was a folk song probably in the 60s, because now women like you serve in the military. So, how has that changed from maybe when you started a number of years ago to today in terms of women serving in the military?
Well, I was very lucky because my experience didn't include any kind of combat, which I'm so grateful for. When we all raise our right hand, we all don't know where we're going, or we don't know what the future has in store for us. So I was very fortunate, and during my training, I was handpicked to stay at RTC Orlando because of my performance record. And like I said, from there, I had very good assignments. So I was very lucky. But to relate to your flower story, I know it was a big weekend for the VFW and the Poppy Drive. They sell poppies, or they have a donation for, it's kind of their fundraiser. Last weekend I was out in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, and their VFW, I was telling our VFW here, actually go on the street and kind of like have a little toll. Okay, you can get by, but you're going to pay $1 and get your poppy. But and of course, my son and I were out there like 4 times, and back and forth. So finally, we just showed them the poppy when we went through, because I think we ended up giving them, quite a bit of money. So we're like, okay, we're good.
And what do they use the funds for?
Like to help other veterans, things like that. I know, like our local VFW, they have the funds put away for somebody needs an emergency, that kind of thing. It's really good. And we do the same thing in our office. We don't have a poppy drive or anything, but just donations made through the public, whether it be the death of a soldier or a death of somebody who served in the military many years ago, but our office helped them in one way or another. They'll make donations to our office, which we can help people, which is fabulous.
So if somebody did want to make a donation, how would they do that?
They would just send it to the town of Plymouth, Attention Veteran Services. And like I said, we have a public assistance program that we run for our veterans. The people have to be 200% below the poverty level. So for like one couple, that's about, for a person, that's about $2,400 a month. Who can live on that between rent and food and prescriptions? So the state, we have a program that we can help people with those costs. And but there are people that are right above that cusp that need the help too. That's why we use the gift account. We can buy them a tank of oil. I buy gift cards from Stop and Shop so they can either get the food aspect of it or they can have the gas station aspect of it. So it's helpful for them that are just right above that don't qualify for any of the services.
And is this just for veterans or for veterans' families as well?
Veterans and their surviving spouses or their children. We try to limit it to say help one time every 3 years or something. But if somebody needs help, we've had people that need help moving or people that have had a sudden death in the family that obviously we would go above and beyond for that as necessary.
Now, if people wanted to contact you directly, how do they call or email you?
So our number at the town hall is 508-747-1620. My direct extension is 10173, and my assistant Joanne Yours is extension 10172. We have email, but the best way is to call us so they can get immediate assistance.
Now, when you say you didn't see combat, it struck me yesterday when I was listening to President Biden's Memorial Day remarks. I knew that his son had served. I knew that his son died of brain cancer. But what I didn't know was the tie-in on the cause of the cancer to his service in Iraq, I think it was. And that's something I think people don't always fully appreciate, that somebody like Beau Biden can come back from military service
and be stricken years later.
And I think he was an elected official in Delaware, and yet later.
I think we have that in our own community. You'll see the guys that came back from Vietnam. They were young. They were 20, 21 years old, came back, and they were fine. But years later, that toxic Agent Orange that they used has caused them horrendous diseases, horrendous, cancers, and just terrible diseases.
And the other piece I heard yesterday in the president's remarks was just commending all of those who served, as well as the families and those who gave a sacrifice. How do you think that type of leadership in those remarks affects veterans and their families?
One thing I hear a lot, Steve, is people don't come for services a lot because, say, they have a hearing deficit because they worked on jet engines, or say they have their knees bothered them because they were a mechanic on their knees the whole time. They say, I hear this all the time, I wish I had a nickel for every time, I don't ask for services because there's people that are way worse off than me. This may be true, but the VA pool is big enough for everybody. So even that person out there with that 10% hearing disability, go and get what you're due, because the VA will take care of your hearing aids for your life. The VA will give you a monthly stipend. The town that you live in, if you own your home, will give you a property tax exemption based on that service-connected disability. So I always tell everybody the VA pool is big enough for everybody that served.
So yesterday you had Memorial Day festivities in Plymouth. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, thank you. Yes, we did. And we had the replication of the Vietnam Huey helicopter that was such a beacon of hope to so many of the men that were stationed over there. Plymouth has a mock-up of it, and to see that thing come down the street, and you hear the music that was associated with the time, and you have those men and women that means so much to them. That was their lifeline, and to see them walk down the street, just proud to be associated with that. We gave them a special shout out because it is the 50th anniversary of that war. And back in 2016, when the proclamation, I think, went from 2012 to 2024, so it's winding up that celebration of the 50 years. We did it on the early side because I wanted to catch as many veterans as I could, because since then we've lost hundreds of Vietnam veterans, hundreds, and not through natural causes, all of them. A lot of them is because of that toxic exposure. And I think we're learning because now the VA is putting into place like presumptives for the burn pits, presumptives for the toxic chemicals they use to clean things, or the AFFF foam that the firefighters use. The VA is starting to be proactive on those claims, which is nice.
So you had festivities yesterday, and then I know there are also special ceremonies on Veterans Day. How do they differ?
Great question. So Memorial Day, and I hear this a lot, and I don't correct people because I know where the sentiment's coming from, but a lot of people will say, Happy Memorial Day. It is not Happy Memorial Day. It is Memorial Day is where we honor those that paid the ultimate sacrifice. And Plymouth has 7, just for the current conflict. We have our Vietnam guys too, which are, I believe, 4. And then we have our World War II gentlemen as well. So but to honor them and to know that their sacrifices help pave the way for us to be able to celebrate and have a happy Memorial Day with our family and friends. That's what I always remember. Veterans Day, on the other hand, is the time to say thank you to our veterans, because that's a celebration of our veterans.
Right.
So that's the difference.
And that was an end of a war.
The armistice?
Yeah, armistice, yeah.
Yes.
Armistice. So do the ceremonies vary at all from the 2 different?
Yes. Like yesterday, we read all the names of the veterans that have passed away since last Memorial Day, and I think we had 135 veterans. And the trend now, obviously, is the Vietnam veterans. We had a few World War II gentlemen, a few Korea, but mostly it was the Vietnam. And for the guys that, like the commander of the VFW, a good friend of mine, Dennis, he's a Vietnam veteran, so I'm sure for him to read those names and see what war is associated with that, that's hard. That's hard for them, you know, because there are a lot of them, and they are passing, you know.
So my father served in the Army,
God, thank
and
you.
he was
God bless.
later a Commodore in a VFW in Kingston.
Oh, no kidding.
So, and I remember going to that when he was sworn in to lead the VFW there. And I wonder, in Plymouth, what types of organizations exist in Plymouth that are available for veterans like the VFW?
To join?
Yes.
So the VFW is geared more to veterans that served in a conflict. The American Legion is more geared to veterans such as myself that served.
Maybe it was the American Legion in Kingston. That might have been it. But anyway, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so we have both organizations here, the VFW and the American Legion, and it's so nice to see them working together as a team, because that's what we're about, is to take care of our veterans. And whether it's a combat veteran or a veteran who just raised their right hand and was willing to do whatever. But it's nice to see them work together. But that's the difference between the two. The veterans of the foreign war, obviously in the name, the American Legion is going to take any veteran that qualifies for veteran status.
And I also know that there's the farm up in Beaver Dam, the Hart Farm.
The Three Hearts Farm.
Three Hearts, is that something that your office supports?
We certainly support what they do. When they first started years ago, they did a lot of transportation, and that is so critical. Still such a critical thing for veterans to get to appointments, for veterans to maybe, anything really, whether they want to go to church. It's just it's always been a big problem for us. So unfortunately, they don't do the transportation piece of it anymore, which is, like I said, really unfortunate. So they're more into they're growing, they have the hydroponics with the lettuce and things like that. So I think that's a great thing for a veteran too to experience. But it was sad for me to see the transportation piece of that go away, because still need that so badly.
And you talked earlier about the number to call in Town Hall. Can people come into your office to meet with you?
Absolutely. We have a walk-in policy, and there's 2 of us in the office. Sometimes we do caution people to come, like if next week I'll be in training. So if somebody wants to come down, to maybe just give a call to make sure Joanne's going to be there, because, we take a 2-person office and make it into one. You know how that goes.
Yeah. And where is the office?
It's 26 Court Street,
Yeah.
first floor. A lot of people get confused when they come into Town Hall, because if you come in the back door, you think you're coming into the first floor, but you're actually coming on to the second floor. But if you park on either side of the building, come in the glass vestibule, you're on the first floor. But we're on the first floor.
Now, you started to talk a little bit about some of the services that your office can help. And I know in my professional life that sometimes we have the opportunity to refer people to you.
Yes.
And I guess I wanted to ask, particularly with elder veterans or families of elder veterans, we often see that when they no longer can live, well, first of all, when they can live independently, what kind of services might be available to an elder veteran?
So we have the aid and attendance program. If they qualify, they have to be a wartime veteran, spending at least 1 day during their service during a wartime. They don't necessarily have to be boots on ground, but serve during. So aid and attendance would help bring extra funds into their home for, say, if they needed, a healthcare person to administer meals or showers, those kind of things. That's what that's for. There's the caregiver program, but a veteran has to be at least 70% service-connected disability to qualify for that. And then there's, a lot of times they don't fit into either box, so we'll have to refer them to like Old Colony Elder Services or that type of thing. I've gone out to a lot of my senior veterans that can't drive. I'll go out to their house and take claims for them. Since COVID, I didn't do it for a long time, but now that we're kind of getting back into a normal again, I've been making home visits to my shut-ins.
And when you say make claims, then what is a claim? What type of claim might there be?
Okay, so typical example is I had a gentleman that he was at 70% forever and ever and ever and ever. He couldn't get to that 100. So I just said, well, why don't we try it this way? So instead of, dragging him up and making him come into the office, he's in his 90s, I just said, I'll come down to your house. And I took the claim to his house. It came in. And after all these years, he's getting that 100% that he was due.
Wonderful.
And that's a great feeling.
Yes.
And I've had claims where I've done for people that if it takes several years, they get a retro of $100,000, and they'll call and say, oh my God. And that's such a great moment. Yeah. You're like, I know I told you while we were going through this, we were fighting for it, and you wanted to give up and thought that it was never going to come around. I have the experience to know that I don't ever let anybody give up, never. And it's paid off several times where people have gotten very, very high retros, and it's a life changer. Mm-hmm. It is a life changer.
Now, someone can no longer live independently in their home, mm-hmm. and they look at assisted living. I know that there are certain benefits available.
The aid and attendance, again, as we spoke about,
okay,
can start in the home and travel to an assisted living, can travel to a long-term care as well.
And how much can that be?
For the veteran, I think it's about $2,300. For the surviving spouse, it's probably about $1,800 or $1,900.
So that, under today's current cost, could be almost maybe up close to a third of what it would cost.
Right.
And to supplement that with maybe some retirement or Social Security people have, it may help them be closer to having the funds to pay without going too much into other savings they have.
That's correct. And the other thing I found out after, I always find out something which I still love to learn every day, but that if somebody is going, say they want to go the aid and attendance route and they have a house, but they're in assisted living, that house doesn't become an asset until they sell it. And I think with Mass Health, if you have that asset, whether it's sold or not, it's an asset. Mm-hmm. So that's the difference between aid and attendance. It doesn't become an asset until it's sold. So they can have that house. They just can't have somebody living there making money with it, but they can still have that property as long as it's not sold. Yes. Then it becomes an asset for them.
And people who are considered eligible if they're not a veteran would be a surviving spouse and children?
A surviving spouse would be eligible for the benefit. The only children that become eligible for any kind of benefits from a veteran obviously would be somebody who is like between the age, well, up to the age of 23 if they're in school,
Okay.
or if they are called a helpless child and they were disabled before the age of 18. Then they can get a stipend off the veteran's initial award to help defer the cost of whether they're in a group home or wherever they're living.
It's a lot of information, Roxanne, to be,
It rattles around in this head.
and it must constantly be updated and changing.
But that's
As
why I'm
laws
going
change.
to training next week to refresh myself, because like I said, I've been doing this between being the admin assistant and being the VSO. I've been doing it 17 years, but I never take that for granted. I don't think that I know everything.
Mm-hmm.
I take a lot of pride in going to my trainings and learning as much as I can. I feel like as long as I sit in that seat, I owe it to the veterans that I service.
So in addition to the American Legion, the VFW, the Three Heart Farm, any other places in Plymouth where veterans?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I'm so glad you asked that. So we have Father Bills.
Oh, yes, yeah.
They are very helpful for veterans that need to be rehomed or homed, whatever the situation is. They're a great resource. I use them quite often. And we are also having the Volunteers of America are going to have a office over by Citizens Bank down by the waterfront. And they're going to be very helpful for helping the veterans maybe that we can't help because of maybe they don't have an appropriate discharge or whatever the case may be. Their qualifications are different than what we are required to comply with the state. So it's just another resource that we can send people to if they don't fit into our box, so to speak.
And we're, again, taping this in the end of May of 2024. What do you see for the future of veteran services?
Well, I hope that we can see it continue, but the trend is down right now. I think a lot of our younger folks I don't know if they think it's by asking for assistance that they're asking for a handout. I always tell them if they come to see me, it's a hand up, and who doesn't need a hand up from time to time?
Sure.
And I service a lot of veterans, and my mantra is to try to treat them the way that I would want to be treated if I was sitting in that seat, because it takes a lot to come to somebody and say, hey, I need help. Nobody wants to really admit that. But we, through confidentiality and everything else, we keep them. We've helped a lot of people. When I first started as a veteran service officer way back when, the money that was coming into Plymouth, the Veteran Administration money, the federal money that was coming in was about $950,000. Now it's well over, it's $2.5 million.
Wow, it's terrific.
And I don't take that I did every one of those claims, but I did a lot of them. So that makes me feel really good, because not only am I saving the town money through our budgetary means, but we're diverting those costs to the federal, and that's going to be a permanent award for those people, as opposed to our program might just be a temporary to get them on their feet, or it could take them through their whole life, depending on what their circumstances are.
That's a dramatic increase. It sounds like it's almost like grant writing when you're making these claims.
It really is, and like I said, I've been doing it for 17 years, so I feel like I know the right buzzwords to use. It's all presentation, how you present the claim.
Do you have any type of network of other directors of veteran services, either in the state or nationally?
Yes. We have a very good veterans organization in the state of Massachusetts, head and shoulders above anybody in the country taking care of veterans.
Wow.
We have, every town has a veteran service officer if they have a population over 12.5, I think it is. I also work for the town of Plimpton. I am like a commissioner, so to speak, over Kingston, and over Carver as well. So they've sought out, I don't want to say expertise, that makes me sound like so great, but they have hired me for that because I've been doing it for so long. That's why.
Great. So we hear lots of times about medical care for veterans, and we hear about a VA hospital. So veterans, let's just talk about Plymouth. Where do they go for their medical care?
So we are fortunate enough in Plymouth that we have what they call the community-based outpatient clinic, and that's on 116 Long Pond Road. They opened up several years ago, and they've made great strides. They have telehealth now. They have just put it a lot of things that can be a lot easier for the veterans instead of making them come in or making them go to Brockton, Jamaica Plain, West Roxbury. So it's they've also added a new piece where if a veteran gets issued hearing aids, they can come to Plymouth and get them repaired. So that's where they had to go to Jamaica Plain before. So I think the VA is very accommodating. Our clinic's grown, but not exponentially as much as it could have grown, I think. But it's just getting the providers down here. It's funny, the VA doctors, they are very highly qualified. A lot of them come from Tufts and Harvard. They're not, a lot of people think the VA doctors are probably just a second wave of doctors, but they're not. They're fabulous.
Mm-hmm. So there's the VA hospital in Jamaica Plain, but quite a few people are treated right here at the clinic.
At the clinic, yep. And I Congressman Delahunt and one of my predecessors, Tony Gomes, was instrumental in making that happen, and Alba Thompson.
I remember Antonio Gomes.
Yes.
He was also a town meeting member for many years as
yeah,
well.
he gave his life to public service, no doubt. And I'll never forget when I first got the position, Alba actually came down and she goes, "You're the first woman in this position, so I want you to remember that." And those words always stuck with me, and I always made sure that she would be proud of the way that I run the office and the way that we service our veterans. I think she would.
Yesterday, when I was traveling back from out of state, I happened to pass through Quincy, and there's a cemetery after you go through Quincy Shore Drive, there's a big area and a lot of flags and a lot of ceremonies, and a lot of people assembled. So where would be gathering places in Plymouth where people can go to honor soldiers that have passed on?
We had quite a few people. We have a ton of cemeteries in Plymouth. Some of them are bigger, obviously, than others, but we've got these little ones that are on the side of the road with maybe 5 graves or 10 graves, and then we've got something like the Vine Hills or St. Joe's, which are huge. We had one family, Dennis Ribeiro's family. The Post 40 American Legion Post 40 is named after his father. Okay. He single-handedly, with his family, went out and replaced every flag in St. Joseph Cemetery. Mm-hmm. A lot. And then we had people go out and do different cemeteries this weekend. On Saturday, I met with the Boy Scouts. There's a troop of them a bunch of them that come out and they do the flags. So we did that on Saturday. Mm-hmm. Looks amazing. If anybody wants to go by the Vine Hills or St. Joe's and take a look, there's a lot of beautiful new flags flapping in the wind, and it's a beautiful thing to see.
So in addition to the cemeteries, I know in the past when there's been marches, there's been different places where the parade would stop momentarily, and then also I know at times there were gatherings at the training green.
Yes, that's where we gathered yesterday at the training green, and we had a wonderful guest speaker. She was a Marshfield high school teacher, and she read about her grandfather had written a letter to his son, which was her dad, about his service and about how to always respect your mom and how to do good things in life. And it ended up that he ended up passing, so her father didn't know his father very well, other than that, that letter that he had gotten. So that was very moving. A lot of people were just very, very touched by that, including myself. It was incredible.
If people had memorabilia related to military service, is there any place locally where you would refer them?
Yes, to Memorial Hall. Bob Davidson has been the curator down there for many years. He does a fabulous job. Last week, heading up to Memorial Day, he had some Plymouth South middle school students there. And each one of them did sit down with one of us. I was fortunate enough to be invited to be one of the speakers or a person there that the kids could ask questions to. And they were amazing. I was really, my heart was like so full with the questions these kids asked and the interest, the level of interest they demonstrated. And it was good to see because I don't know in our country now where we're tearing down monuments and memorials if we're passing on the proper message about what our military did, you know.
And so Plymouth is a pretty large area, 104 square miles. So any other locations where if people wanted to go and pay their respects that you can think about besides the training green and the cemeteries and Memorial Hall?
We have 5 memorials throughout town. We have Memorial Hall, obviously. We have a Vietnam Memorial in Korea in front of the town hall.
Okay.
We have the World War I bridge, which is kind of across. It used to be Katie's. I'm not sure what it is now. It's, I think, Papa's or Pizza Place,
Near
but right
Brewster
there.
Gardens.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. There, and then obviously the training green. Those are the local places in Plymouth, but I think to take a drive down to the Bourne National Cemetery right now would be
Yes, I've been
entirely
there,
worth
yeah.
it.
Sure.
Because they just did their flags on Saturday too, and it's really quite a sight to see.
Yeah. I've attended funerals there, and they're very moving.
They really are. They really, really are. And some of the veterans will come in and they'll say, well, I have an opportunity to be buried here, or I have an opportunity to be buried at Bourne, and I'm really kind of gravitating towards that. And I'm like, what better place to lie and rest with your brothers and sisters that served
Right.
either with you, before you?
Now, earlier you were talking about the veterans from Vietnam and Agent Orange, but there are all kinds of service-related disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, others that come to mind might be addiction
Oh, yes.
or depression or mental health issues. So how would you say, what are the types of challenges that you see some of our veterans facing from a health point of view?
That's really a great point, because those are the guys that, you can't see their disability. I had a gentleman that I was in my office this morning, as a matter of fact, and some of the things that have happened to him, whether it's wrongful incarceration or because he reacted to a situation, you know what I mean? But I think we're getting better at that. We have officers, or we have people from the VA type thing that can grab those people in the judicial system and get them the help that they need, because PTSD, as complicated and as it is, you can't see it, you can't feel it, you can't touch it.
As opposed to a leg that was taken off.
Exactly, as opposed to a physical injury or somebody who who wears a hat and walks with a cane. You're inclined to think that, oh, there's a service, he got disabled by the service. But the PTSD and the mental health and the mental health umbrella issues, you can't see them. And I think sometimes, I don't want to say a stigma, because I hope we're getting away from that, but those are the folks that sometimes feel like their disability isn't touchable or it's not seen, so a lot of people maybe don't appreciate it for its reality, but it is a real thing, for sure.
It is, and we see that in so many areas. In my world, as a lawyer,
Yes, I'm sure.
a number of years ago, I was involved in the Plymouth Alliance for the Mentally Ill, and we did some volunteer sensitivity training with the Plymouth Police Department.
Oh, awesome.
To try to help them recognize when they encounter somebody that may initially present as committing a crime, when in fact they're suffering from major mental illness and need to be handled a little bit differently than a criminal.
Right.
And I'm wondering what, if anything, is happening or available for veterans in terms of working cooperatively with the court or the police or other public safety departments?
And we have guys, like I was saying, that work in the jail that actually will coordinate with these folks. And another thing that Volunteers of America will, that's another piece of the puzzle that they're going to pick up as well. And to be totally honest with you, I think a lot of our police force and our firefighters, they're veterans themselves. So they very well could be, carrying that PTSD or anxiety. And so I would hope that if that's the situation, that they'll have a little bit compassion for their brother or sister out there that's suffering, But you gotta get them the help that they need. Even if they're not asking for it, they don't know that they are asking for it,
Now, people are watching this presentation, and if they weren't familiar with your office, what are the types of services that don't often come to mind? Like people go, "Oh, I didn't know you do that." Is there anything you can think of that's fairly common that people could maybe contact you and avail themselves of the benefit?
A lot of times we tell anybody that has anything that has the word veteran in it, come to see us, whether it's educational benefits, whether you're looking for to get your home financed through the VA, whether you are looking for health services. The VA is such a broad organization with so many different offshoots that you can't know everything about it. So basically, and not saying that I do, but if somebody comes in my office and says, "Well, can you tell me about educational benefits and what am I entitled to?" Then I'll go do the research and say, "Okay, well, you served here, you did this, so you're entitled to that, or you're service connected, you get to go to folk rehab." We do the research so that somebody knows that when they leave our office, they feel confident that they got the right answer.
In addition to Veterans Day, Memorial Day, I know at town meeting over the years, at times we've had veterans participate in our opening ceremonies, which is always wonderful.
Yes.
What other events might occasionally occur in Plymouth where veterans participate or can be involved? I know there was something at Memorial Hall.
Right. Like they'll bring entertainers in, like Ricky Lee came in and was going and did a free show for veterans. I know there's another organization in town, Medic Now, they're going to be hosting a comedy event the week before Veterans Day this year, and it's going to be at Memorial Hall. So that will be pretty soon. That's probably going to be very highly advertised and things like that. And Medic Now is a great foundation. We actually got the first stipend here in Plymouth, and it was a $500 stipend and we gave it to a local veteran, an older veteran who's on a fixed income, who needed a certain med because of his service-connected disability. I don't think he was service-connected at the time for that, so his meds were very expensive, so he was able to get that stipend. So they're a great organization to work with as well. There's a lot of people out there that want to do good for veterans.
So you're a town office or department.
Yes, sir.
Department, and yet you work not only with the federal government, but I assume
the state,
with our local state legislative delegation.
No, actually, we work for the Executive Office of Veteran Services, which is now a cabinet position. Our secretary is on staff under the governor, and he's doing great things. So what our office can do is, if we administer benefits under that program, we're reimbursed 75% of whatever we pay out, we get back. It's a year lag time, but what kind of deal is that?
Sure.
So it's a win-win for the town. But that's just for the benefits administration. But we can do so much for that, Steve. It's seriously, whether somebody needs hearing aids and they can't get them through the VA, or dental work. if they qualify for our program, we can get them all those services, streamline them for those services that they need. And it's definitely, especially for the older population that has set income.
And sometimes we take certain things for granted, and yet the veterans have served, and there's a real need there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've heard stories where they'll come in and say, well, I can't afford that medicine, so I cut it in half. And it's like, does your doctor know you're doing that? No, but so we hear all the stories, and they're heartbreaking. And that's why I'm so glad to be able to either help them on the state level or on the federal level, because usually we can catch them in one or the other.
Do you have any specific needs that people watching might hear and be able to help out? Any needs for your office?
It's funny you say that too, because I was reached out to last week. I have a meeting with him when I get back from my training to sit down, but the Pine Hills has a group of veterans. I'm noticing like all these communities,
Sure.
like Red Brook, they've got their little
Right.
veterans group now, and now the Pine Hills, they've had a very active veterans group for a long time. But they're offering, and they give me a very generous donation every year towards our gift account. But we, like I said, we limit that to like maybe one-time assistance every 3 years, maybe $1,000, but have somebody who needed a roof. Can't pay a roof without putting a lien on that property. So if the person doesn't want to put a lien on that property, I have the Pine Hills group that's reaching out to me saying, hey, we know what you can handle these smaller projects, but we want to help you with some bigger projects. So we'll see what happens with that meeting, but I'm very anxious for that, because there are people that might need help with car repair or a bathroom modification, or maybe some bars on to help them ambulate, bars on the bathroom or going up the stairs, whatever they may need. It's different for everybody, but they're offering to kind of maybe spearhead that for us.
And the demographics certainly over the 17 years has changed in Plymouth. So maybe when you started, there wasn't a Pine Hills group.
No,
now
there
there
wasn't. And actually how our gift account got started all those years ago was from a local businessman who was a veteran himself who wanted to give back. So he gave us at the time, $5,000 check.
Nice.
That was
Sure.
a large donation, and it's grown since then every year. We have quite a bit of money there, and we're quite generous with it too, because we want to make sure our veterans are taken care of.
People watching don't always realize, they think of, oh, well, you're a town office, so you don't necessarily receive other funds, and yet the public schools have the Plymouth Education Foundation, and the library has the Library Corporation. So you too have the ability
Veterans
for
gift account, yep.
Veterans Gift Account, and that's really like a discretionary fund?
It is. I am the gatekeeper of that, and I take that very seriously. I don't think anybody's coming in not asking for something that they don't need, but I want to make sure, number one, that they're a veteran. Number two, I ask them for a bank statement to show the need, and then we can help them however, whatever they happen to need at the time, whether it's moving expenses, whether it's a payment on their, for rent or tank of oil. Different things to different people.
So any changes that you can suggest that you'd like to see in terms of veteran services in Plymouth?
I think we're pretty much a well-oiled machine at this stage of the game. We both are very passionate about helping our veterans in the community, and I think that they know that, and they feel comfortable coming out to speak to us, and building up that relationship with them, and knowing that whatever their situation is not only important to them, but it's important to us too, and the confidentiality of it too, because to ask for something, a lot of people feel like it's uncomfortable for them, but we always want to make sure that they know that their request is in confidence, and some of the claims that they tell me, I mean, they tell me things that they would never want other people to hear, and they just know that I take that very seriously, and that will never leave my lips or my office.
So Roxanne, we're getting to know you a little better today with this conversation, There's someone else in the office. Tell us a little bit about your colleague.
We've been together for probably pretty much the whole duration. I started there, I think, in August, and she started in November, and we've been working together for quite some time. So we spend a lot of time together. And her name's Joanne, mine's Roxanne, born the same year, hope to retire, around the same time. But I think if you ask either one of us, we're both pretty proud of the office that we've created. And I'm very happy to have her as an assistant.
So Roxanne, when you're not busy doing veteran services, what do you like to do in your free time, spare time?
Well, I have a son that lives on Nantucket, so I love to go visit him. I have a lot of friends in town that I like to do things with, go out to dinner, or just do something, walking. And now with summer here, it's going to be, so once the green pollen goes away, it'll be just nice to be outside because we have probably the most beautiful town in the waterfront. I mean, how lucky.
Yeah, we certainly do. So again, Roxanne, for those people that might have joined us partway through this, how do they contact you?
Okay, so the number at the town hall is 508-747-1620. My direct extension is 10173, and my assistant Joanne is extension 10172.
And if they want to write to you?
Email would be rwhitbeck@plymouth-ma.gov, and that would be the same for my assistant, except hers would be jewers@plymouth-ma.gov.
And so we're taping this the day after Memorial Day. You have training coming up. What's the next event, the big event that will be coming up in Plymouth?
Well, we got July, the 4th of July parade, which I don't have to coordinate, which is nice. I usually participate like with the American Legion.
Okay. So veterans participate?
Yes, absolutely. And then we'll have the Thanksgiving Day, then Veterans Day, and then the Thanksgiving Day. But I always, I'm on the military committee for Thanksgiving Day, and this year I'll be coordinating the team of the USS Constitution, and then the Navy Band Newport. I've been coordinating.
So talk to us a little bit about Thanksgiving Day. What happens in Plymouth for veterans on Thanksgiving?
Well, what happens for veterans, we get a lot of donations from the community for, they'll kick in for gift baskets. So one of our biggest donors is Quintals. They're amazing. He prepares however many gift baskets we need, and he gets them all ready. We just give them a list of names. The veteran will go up there and pick up a nice meal for them and their family. And they don't just say, okay, a turkey, family for 4. If you've got a family for 6 or 8 or 10, we just let them know that, and they adjust. We've had realtors in town that coordinate the same thing. They'll go, say their pickup will be at Perry's Market, or then we'll have people that, American Legion, VFW, that will give us gift cards to Stop and Shop or wherever that the person could go buy whatever they want for their Thanksgiving. And those organizations do that for Christmas as well.
So Roxanne, again, for people who might have joined us late, if there's anything in particular that you would like somebody who might have joined us partway through, have them remember about veterans and veteran services in Plymouth?
Well, if you don't know us, please come down and meet us. We'd love to meet you. If you know a veteran in trouble that doesn't necessarily want to ask for the help, just give me a call. I'll be happy to call them and reach out to them, because I know it's not always easy asking for help sometimes when you need it most.
Great. Roxanne Whitbeck, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Roxanne is the Director of Veteran Services for the town of Plymouth. You heard that her office is located in Plymouth Town Hall, and she's very available to people by phone, by email, by mail. Spread the word. There are good things happening for our veterans in Plymouth. Thank you for joining us to this edition of Plymouth Profiles, and please join us for future presentations. My name is Steve Triffletti. Thank you. Good day.